Alpha King saves Omega from a raging wildfire as the flames rise instead to honor her presence. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, back to our main character. Sophia Walker had always been known as the weak one in her pack. The Omega who couldn't shift, who was often overlooked, and never quite fit in with the others. The fires had started as they always did, small, controlled, nothing to fear. But today was different. Today, the flames were raging uncontrollably, spreading faster than anyone could manage, and the winds only made it worse. It was a clear, crisp day, but the smoke in the air was thick, casting an orange glow over the forest, making it look as if the world itself was on fire. Sophia had been out gathering herbs in the woods, her usual routine, when the fire broke out unexpectedly. Her heart raced as she tried to find her way back to safety, but the flames had already surrounded her. The path she had taken was no longer an option, and panic set in. She was trapped. The air was thick with smoke, and every breath burned her lungs. Her legs were aching from running, but the heat behind her made it impossible to stop. The fire was closing in, the crackling of burning trees louder than her racing heartbeat. She stumbled, her footing giving way as she collapsed to the ground, her hands desperately trying to push herself up. But then, something shifted. There, in the smoke, she saw him. A figure, tall and commanding, emerging from the chaos as if the flames themselves parted to let him through. It was a man, but not just any man. His presence was overwhelming, his power radiating from him like an unspoken force. Alpha King Luca Thornridge. He moved with a grace and strength that seemed impossible, even with the chaos of the fire surrounding them. He had no hesitation, no fear. He was here to save her. With one powerful leap, he was at her side, lifting her into his arms effortlessly. Sophia, still dazed, could hardly believe what was happening. The Alpha King, Luca Thornridge, the ruler of all the northern territories, was here, holding her, saving her from the very flames that threatened to consume them both. As they moved swiftly through the smoke, Luca's eyes were locked on the fire, his face a mask of concentration. Sophia could feel the heat of the flames, but with every step they took, the fire seemed to retreat, as though acknowledging the presence of someone far more powerful than it. Luca's grip tightened around her, his protective hold a shield against the inferno. His steps were sure, the confidence in his movements making her feel safe, despite the overwhelming danger. And then, as they reached a safe clearing, the fire finally began to die down, the wind shifting, taking the smoke away with it. The flames had risen high, but they had not touched her. They had risen instead to honor her presence. In that moment, Sophia realized something deep, something powerful. She had been saved, not just by an alpha, but by fate itself. Luca set her down gently, his silver eyes meeting hers with an intensity that left her breathless. "You're safe now," he said, his voice calm but filled with an undeniable strength. "I couldn't let you go." As the fire died out behind them, it felt as though the world had changed. The flames had risen, and they had recognized her presence, just as Luca had. Sophia was no longer just an Omega. She was something far more. And as the Alpha King looked at her, she realized her life was about to change forever. "I am not sure what kind of fate I have been caught in," Sophia thought to herself as she watched the Alpha King, Luca Thornridge, standing in front of her, his figure towering with authority even in this moment of quiet. The air was still, the smoke from the wildfire now a mere memory in the gentle breeze. Despite the intense heat she had just endured, there was something undeniably calming about Luca's presence. The way he stood, unbothered by the ordeal, his gaze sharp and focused, made her feel as though she had been granted a kind of protection that went beyond mere physical safety. "You saved me," Sophia whispered, still trying to comprehend the events that had just unfolded. She had never imagined that she would find herself in such a dangerous situation, let alone in the arms of the most powerful alpha in the land. "I couldn't just leave you," Luca replied, his voice deep and steady, a contrast to the chaos they had just escaped. He took a step closer to her, his presence almost overwhelming. You're not just an Omega, Sophia. You're more than that. Sophia felt her heart skip a beat as she looked up into his silver-gray eyes, eyes that held an intensity she had never seen before. There was a power in those eyes, a power that seemed to resonate with her own being, as if the connection between them was already stronger than she could understand. She opened her mouth to speak but found that the words caught in her throat. How could she respond to something like that? How could she even begin to grasp what he was implying? Luca didn't give her a chance to formulate an answer. I've been watching you, he said, his voice almost a whisper, but there was no mistaking the seriousness in his tone. You have something inside you, something I've been searching for. Something that makes you more than just a healer or a broken Omega. What do you mean? Sophia asked, her voice barely audible as she took a step back, her mind spinning with the weight of his words. Luca's expression softened, but there was still a glint of something unyielding in his gaze. There's more to you than you know. The fire, the way it responded to you, it wasn't just coincidence. There's a bond between us, Sophia. One that I can't ignore, no matter how much I try. His words sent a chill down her spine, but she wasn't sure if it was fear or something else entirely. A bond, she repeated, trying to make sense of the strange emotions swirling within her. What kind of bond? The kind that changes everything, Luca replied, his hand reaching out slowly, as if giving her the space to decide whether or not she would accept his touch. A bond that ties us together, no matter where we go or what happens. He paused for a moment, allowing the weight of his words to settle in the air between them. You're my mate, Sophia. You've always been my mate. And the fire, the flames that rose to honor you, it was the first sign. Sophia's heart raced as the truth of his words began to sink in. It was like a puzzle she had never known she was meant to solve, and now, the pieces were falling into place. The bond he spoke of, the connection she had felt since the moment they met, it was real. And she was part of something much larger than she had ever imagined. But before she could respond, Luca took another step forward, closing the distance between them. I know this is overwhelming, he said softly, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. But I promise you, I will protect you. I will never let you go. Not now, not ever. The intensity in his voice was unwavering, and for the first time in her life, Sophia felt truly seen. She had always been the one hiding in the shadows, the one who never fit in, the one who wasn't good enough. But now, standing in front of Luca, with the weight of the world's power and fate pressing down on them both, she realized that maybe, just maybe, she had always been meant for something more. I know this is a lot to take in, Luca said, his voice softer now as he stepped back, giving Sophia space. But Sophia wasn't sure what to say. A mate? The words swirled in her mind, bouncing against her skull like an unanswered question. She had never imagined anything like this. She had always believed herself to be ordinary, someone who would fade into the background of the world, unnoticed, insignificant. But Luca was telling her that she was anything but ordinary. That she had always been destined for something greater. I don't understand, Sophia finally whispered, her voice shaky. I don't, how could I be your mate? I'm nothing. The words stung as they left her lips, but it was the truth she had lived with her entire life. She had never felt like she belonged, never felt like she was worth anything. You are not nothing, Luca replied, his voice firm. You are my mate, Sophia. And that means something. It means you are destined for something far beyond what you can see right now. He stepped closer to her again, this time not with urgency, but with a kind of reverence. You don't have to understand it all at once. I'm not asking you to. But know this, you are not alone. Not anymore. The fire had long since died down, but Sophia could still feel the heat in her chest. Not from the flames, but from the rush of emotions that Luca's words had ignited. But I don't know anything about being an alpha's mate, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know how to be. I don't know how to be anything other than what I've always been. Luca's eyes softened, and he reached out, his hand gently resting on her arm. You don't have to change, Sophia. You're perfect just as you are. Being my mate isn't about changing who you are. It's about growing together, discovering things you never knew about yourself. The sincerity in his voice made Sophia's heart race. She had always been taught that her worth came from what others saw in her, but Luca was telling her that her worth was inherent, that it wasn't about changing who she was, it was about being who she was meant to be. She felt something stir deep inside her, a quiet understanding, like a soft, flickering light in the dark. I don't know what's going to happen, Sophia said, her voice steadying, but I know that right now, I don't want to walk away from this. Luca's smile was slow, but it lit up his entire face, and in that moment, Sophia felt something she had never felt before, acceptance. Not just from Luca, but from herself. She wasn't just the girl who had been overlooked and cast aside. She was Sophia Walker, and she was worthy of love, worthy of protection, and worthy of the Alpha King's claim. Then stay, Luca said, his voice low and rich with promise. Stay with me, Sophia. We'll figure this out together. And in that moment, under the fading light of the fire, Sophia made a choice. A choice to step into the unknown, to embrace whatever came next. She had always been afraid of change, but now, with Luca at her side, the fear was fading, replaced by something far stronger, hope. I'm glad you decided to stay, Luca said softly as they sat by the now cooling remnants of the fire. The night was peaceful, the kind of stillness that only followed something dramatic, something life-altering. 4. Sophia, it felt like she had been thrown into a world that was foreign to her, yet somehow, it felt like home. The weight of her earlier thoughts had lessened with each passing moment spent in Luca's presence. The forest around them was quiet now, save for the occasional rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze. The fire had burned out, but a warmth lingered, a warmth that wasn't from the flames, but from the connection between them. I never imagined this day would come, Sophia admitted, her voice quiet but filled with emotion. I never thought I'd be here, with you. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to do. Luca turned his gaze to her, his silver eyes gleaming in the soft moonlight. You don't have to know everything right now. You don't have to figure it all out. All that matters is that you're here, with me. His words were simple, but there was a sincerity in them that made her heart flutter. Sophia looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. The Alpha King, powerful and commanding, yet there was something deeply vulnerable in his gaze, a quiet sadness that spoke volumes. He had seen a side of her no one else had ever seen. He had seen her not as the broken Omega, not as the outcast, but as someone worthy of protection, worthy of being his mate. You don't have to do anything either, Sophia, Luca continued, his voice steady and comforting. Just be yourself. That's all I ask. There was something so genuine in his words that it made Sophia's chest ache. She had spent so many years hiding who she was, suppressing the parts of herself that she believed were weak or useless. But here, in this moment, with Luca beside her, she felt like she could be more than that. She could be something she never thought possible. I don't know if I can, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know if I can be the mate you deserve. Luca reached out and gently took her hand in his grip warm and steady. You already are, he said softly. You've always been. His words were a balm to the doubts that had plagued her for years. For the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged, like she was meant to be here, with him. I never imagined I would find someone like you, Sophia said, her voice trembling slightly. Someone who could see me for who I truly am, not just what everyone else thought I was. Luca smiled then, a small, tender smile that made her heart skip a beat. And I never imagined I would find someone like you, Sophia. Someone who could make me feel like I'm not just a king, but a man, with someone who understands me. The night stretched on, but it felt different now. It felt like a new beginning. As they sat there, side by side, Sophia realized that her life had changed forever. She wasn't just an Omega. She wasn't just the girl who had been cast aside. She was Luca's mate, his equal, and together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. And for the first time in her life, she felt ready. I know you're still processing everything, Sophia, Luca said as they walked through the quiet forest, the path ahead illuminated by the soft glow of the moon. The night had a peaceful stillness, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves underfoot. Sophia walked beside him, her mind still racing with thoughts she couldn't fully organize. I think it's more than just processing, she replied, her voice soft but steady. I'm trying to understand what this all means. What it means to be your mate. Luca glanced over at her, his silver eyes filled with a mix of understanding and something else, something deeper. It means we're connected, Sophia, he said quietly. It means you and I are meant to be together, to face everything together. His words were simple, but there was a weight to them, a truth that settled deep in her chest. For a moment, they walked in silence, each step carrying them further into the unknown, yet closer to a new beginning. The world around them felt different now, as if it had shifted in some subtle way that only they could feel. Sophia had spent so much of her life feeling small, insignificant, never really seen. But now, walking beside Luca, she felt as if she had found her place, her purpose. I'm scared, she admitted after a long pause. Scared of what I'll become, or what I'll have to become. Luca stopped walking then, and she followed his lead, looking up at him. His expression was serious, but there was a gentleness in his eyes that reassured her. You don't have to become anything other than what you are, he said, his voice low but filled with conviction. You're already everything you need to be, Sophia. All that matters is that you're true to yourself. Nothing else matters. She felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words, a warmth that felt safe, comforting. It was a stark contrast to the uncertainty she had carried for so long. But what about you? What about your role as Alpha King? She asked, still unsure. I've always been more than just a king, Luca replied, his voice softening. I've been searching for something my entire life, Sophia. Something that no crown or throne could ever give me. And that something is you. Being with you isn't a duty, it's a choice. A choice I've made because I believe in us, in what we can become together. Her heart raced as she processed his words. This wasn't just about power or responsibility. This was about a connection, a bond that went beyond titles and expectations. This was about them, as individuals, finding something real in each other. I don't know what's ahead, Sophia said quietly, but for the first time, I don't feel like I have to face it alone. Luca smiled then, and it was a smile that reached his eyes, a rare and genuine expression of warmth. You'll never be alone again, he said softly, taking her hand in his. We'll face everything together. That's a promise. They stood there for a moment, the cool night air surrounding them, the quiet of the forest providing a sense of peace. For the first time in her life, Sophia felt as though she had found her place in the world, beside the one person who saw her, who understood her. And as they continued walking through the forest, hand in hand, she realized that the future didn't seem so daunting anymore. Together, they would face whatever came next. I am starting to understand now, Sophia said, her voice quiet, as they walked side by side through the dense forest. The moonlight filtered through the trees, casting soft shadows around them. The world felt alive in a way she had never noticed before, full of possibilities she had never dared to imagine. Each step she took with Luca beside her made her feel like she was walking into a future she had never thought was hers to claim. Understand what? Luca asked, his voice gentle, as if he already knew the answer. Sophia smiled, her heart feeling lighter than it had in years. That maybe I was always meant to be more than I thought I was. Maybe I was meant to be with you, she said, turning to look at him. He glanced at her then, his silver gray eyes full of warmth. He reached out, taking her hand in his, and she felt a spark of something deep within her. A sense of belonging. You always were, he replied, his voice steady and full of certainty. It was just a matter of time before you realized it. They walked for a few more minutes, the silence between them comfortable, as if they had already spoken everything they needed to say. But then, a soft voice broke the quiet. Sophia. It was Luca's voice, filled with a seriousness that made her stop in her tracks. She turned to face him, her heart skipping a beat. There was something different in his eyes, something more intense. What's wrong? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Nothing's wrong, he replied quickly, but there was a hesitation in his tone. I just want you to understand how important you are to me. Sophia's heart skipped. She had always believed that people like her were destined to be overlooked, to be forgotten. But Luca was telling her something completely different. He was telling her that she was important, not just to him, but to the world. "You're not just my mate," Luca continued, his hand still holding hers. "You're the one who will help me lead, who will help me heal the rift that's been growing for so long in our world. The people need us, Sophia. They need both of us." Sophia felt a rush of emotions, fear, excitement, and something else she couldn't quite place. She had never considered that she could be part of something so much bigger than herself. "You're asking me to help you lead," she said, the idea almost too overwhelming to comprehend. Luca nodded, his gaze unwavering. "I'm asking you to be with me, not just as my mate, but as my equal. To help me build a future for our people." The weight of his words sank into her, and for the first time, Sophia didn't feel afraid. She felt ready. "I'll help you," she said, her voice filled with determination. "I'll stand by you, Luca. We'll do this together." Luca's eyes softened, and he pulled her into a gentle embrace. "Together," he whispered, and in that moment, Sophia knew that her life was no longer just about surviving, it was about thriving. It was about finding her place, not in the shadows, but by Luca's side, where she belonged. The forest around them seemed to breathe with them, as if the very air had changed. There was no going back now. Together, they would face the challenges ahead, and Sophia would never again feel like she was invisible. She was finally seen. And she would make sure that, with Luca by her side, they would build a future worth fighting for. "I have never seen you so sure of anything," Sophia said quietly, her gaze resting on Luca as they walked through the heart of the forest. The path before them was untouched, the trees whispering in the wind as though they too recognized the shift in the air. Luca had been quiet for the last few minutes, his steps deliberate, as if contemplating something important. "I've never been so sure of anything," Luca replied, his voice steady but filled with a weight that Sophia hadn't expected. He stopped walking then, turning to face her. "But this, Sophia, this is something I've known deep down. We were meant to do this together. To lead, to change the way things have been for so long." Sophia stood still, processing his words. She had always known that Luca was more than just an alpha king. He carried a burden, a responsibility that went beyond ruling a pack. But hearing him speak with such certainty made her realize just how much he believed in their bond. "How can I help?" she asked, her voice gentle but filled with determination. She had never been a leader, never had the confidence to take charge, but with Luca beside her, she felt a spark of something within her. Something that made her believe she could be more than what she had ever thought possible. Luca smiled at her, his eyes softening. "You already help, Sophia. You've always helped. Your presence calms me, strengthens me. But more than that, you have a gift that we need. You can heal, not just the body, but the spirit. And that's something that will make all the difference." Sophia felt a flush of warmth spread through her chest at his words. She had never thought of herself as anything special, just someone who could heal with her touch. But now, Luca was telling her that her gift, the one she had always seen as small, could actually change the world. "I don't know how to lead," she said quietly, looking down at their intertwined hands. "I'm not like you." Luca lifted her chin gently, making her meet his gaze. "You're everything I need, Sophia. You already lead by being who you are. Your strength, your compassion, your ability to see people for who they truly are, that is the kind of leadership that will change everything." His words settled deep inside her, and she realized he was right. She didn't need to be like him. She didn't need to change who she was. She just needed to trust in herself and her abilities. "I'm ready," she said softly, her voice gaining strength with each word. "I'm ready to do this. With you." Luca's smile grew wider, and he pulled her into a brief, but tender embrace. "Together," he whispered. The promise in his words was clear. They would face whatever came next as one, not just as mates, but as equals. As partners in something far bigger than either of them had ever imagined. As they continued their walk through the forest, Sophia felt the weight of their future pressing down on her, but it was no longer a burden. It was a challenge, one that she was ready to face, side by side with Luca. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be obstacles, uncertainties, and challenges they couldn't even begin to predict. But in that moment, as the forest whispered around them, she knew they would face it all together. She wasn't just an Omega. She was Sophia Walker, Luca's mate, and together, they would change the world. I don't know what the future holds, Luca, Sophia said, her voice quiet, filled with uncertainty. The moon was high above them, casting a silver glow over the forest as they walked side by side. There was a certain stillness in the air tonight, as if the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. They had made their decision, but now, standing at the edge of the unknown, Sophia couldn't help but feel a bit overwhelmed. Neither do I, Luca replied, his tone steady, but there was a glint of something in his eyes. But what I do know is that we have each other. And together, we will find a way. I promise you that. They walked in silence for a moment, the weight of his words settling over Sophia like a comforting blanket. She wasn't alone anymore. For so long, she had felt like an outsider, a shadow in the world. But now, with Luca by her side, she felt like she could stand tall, face whatever came, and not crumble under the weight of it all. I never thought I'd have a place in this world, Sophia said, her voice soft, almost to herself. I've always been the one who's overlooked, the one who doesn't belong. Luca stopped walking, turning to face her. His eyes were intense, focused on her, and in that moment, it was as if the entire world had faded away, leaving just the two of them. You belong with me, he said, his voice low and unwavering. You've always belonged with me. And I won't let you forget that. His words took Sophia by surprise, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly seen. Not as someone who had to fight for attention, but as someone who was simply worthy of love and respect. I've always been afraid, Sophia admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Afraid of what I might become. Afraid that I'll never be enough. Luca's hand reached out then, gently taking hers in his. The warmth of his touch spread through her, grounding her in a way she had never known. You're more than enough, Sophia, he said, his voice filled with a quiet conviction that soothed the doubts that had plagued her for so long. You are everything I need, and together, we'll face whatever challenges lie ahead. Sophia looked up at him, her heart swelling with emotion. And if I falter, she asked, her voice trembling slightly. What if I fail? Luca smiled, a small, reassuring smile that made her heart flutter. Then I'll be there to catch you, he said, his grip tightening slightly on her hand. I won't let you fall. Not now, not ever. The promise in his words was clear. They were partners in this, and no matter what happened, they would face it together. Sophia felt the weight of the world lighten, the uncertainty fading with each step they took forward. She wasn't alone anymore. She wasn't just an Omega, just a healer, just someone who had been cast aside. She was Luca's mate, his equal, and with him by her side, there was nothing they couldn't overcome. Thank you, Sophia whispered, her voice filled with gratitude and a love she didn't fully understand yet. For everything. Luca's smile widened, and he leaned down, brushing a strand of hair from her face. You don't have to thank me, he said softly. This is what we're meant for. Together, we'll change the world. With that, they continued walking, their hands intertwined, the future ahead of them uncertain but filled with promise. Together, they would face whatever came their way, and together, they would find their place in this world. And for the first time, Sophia felt like she had found exactly where she belonged. I know we can do this, Sophia said, her voice filled with quiet determination as they continued their walk through the forest. The air felt different now, lighter, as if the world was opening up around them, and every step felt like a step towards something brighter. Luca walked beside her, his presence a constant reminder of the bond they shared, a bond that had only deepened over the past days. He had shown her a world of possibilities, a world where she wasn't just the Omega, the one who was always overlooked, but someone who was meant for greatness. We are ready for whatever comes next, Luca replied, his voice steady and confident, filled with a strength that seemed to steady her. There is nothing that will stop us, Sophia. Nothing. His words were a promise, one that filled her with more hope than she had ever felt in her life. They had faced the uncertainty of their futures together, and now, standing side by side, Sophia knew that they could face anything. They were not just a king and his mate, they were a team. They walked through the forest in comfortable silence for a while, the peace between them unspoken but tangible. Every now and then, Luca would glance at her with a smile, and she would return it, feeling an unspoken understanding pass between them. "Luca," Sophia said after a moment, breaking the quiet. "Do you ever wonder what the future will look like? What it will be like, to lead together?" Luca slowed his pace slightly, his gaze turning thoughtful as he looked ahead. "I think about it often," he said, his tone contemplative. "But I believe that whatever happens, we will make it work. Together, we can build a future that's different from the past. A future where everyone is valued for who they are." Sophia felt a warmth spread through her at his words. This was the future she had always dreamed of, one where she wasn't just a healer or an outcast, but a partner in every sense. She wasn't just here to support Luca, she was here to stand beside him, to make decisions, to help lead. "I'm ready," she said, her voice filled with certainty. "I'm ready to face the future with you." Luca looked at her then, his expression softening. "I'm glad to hear that," he said quietly, his eyes filled with affection. "Because the journey ahead will require all of us, Sophia. And I couldn't ask for anyone else by my side." A smile tugged at the corner of Sophia's lips, and she felt a sense of peace settle within her. She had never imagined this life for herself, the life of a leader, a mate, a partner, but now, with Luca at her side, it felt like exactly where she was meant to be. "Together," she echoed softly. "Always." They continued their journey through the forest, the path ahead still unknown, but the weight of it felt lighter now, more manageable. With each step, Sophia felt stronger, more certain of her place in this world, more certain of the role she would play alongside Luca. They had already begun to shape their future, and nothing would stand in their way. The future, as uncertain as it might have seemed, was theirs to create. And Sophia knew, with Luca beside her, it would be a future worth fighting for.